Hi, I'm Scott O, Vice President of Federal for Latent AI. Today we're honored to have Lieutenant General Dave Bassett as a guest for a conversation about the benefits, challenges, and future of Edge AI. Lieutenant General Dave Bassett retired in January of 2024 after more than 35 years of service, mostly serving as the Director of the Defense Contract Management Agency, where he led a Department of Defense agency of more than 11,000 civilians and military personnel, managing more than 250,000 contracts, performed at 15,000 locations worldwide with a total value in excess of $3.5 trillion. Prior to DCMA, Dave served as the Army Program Executive Officer for Command, Control, and Communications Tactical, PEO, C3T, where he was responsible for the development, acquisition, fielding, and support of the Army's tactical network, a critical modernization priority. Lieutenant General Bassett was commissioned in the Signal Corps in 1988 and has served in a variety of leadership roles in combat arms and signal units, deploying with the 2nd Armored Cavalry Regiment for the First Gulf War. He has extensive joint experience serving on the U.S. European Command Staff as well as the Joint Staff. He currently serves as an advisor to Latent AI on how to best deliver AI ML solutions that help speed data decision in a mission-relevant timeframe. First, sir, thanks for joining us today. Definitely appreciate taking the time to meet with us and chat with us here.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Scott.
Really want to just start right at the beginning. Why did you choose the Army and dedicate your life to service within the Army?
I think, like a lot of folks, I was looking for a way to pay for college, and I knew I wanted to be an engineer, and I felt like that would be a skill I could bring to the Army. And every time I went to get out, the Army offered me something else that I was interested in doing. And so I continued to take the opportunities that were presented, and it ended up going a full 35 years. So it was I look back very fondly on my time in uniform.
Yeah, amazing. Kind of zooming to the end at DCMA, you managed $3.5 trillion. That's a really hard number for me to wrap my mind around. Can you just help put that in perspective for us?
Yeah, it's a really big number. The $3.5 trillion represents the total contract value of all the contracts we had under management. So a lot of those are multiple year contracts with multiple delivery options. That's a ceiling price if all of those contract options were exercised. And so, DCMA doesn't award those contracts. It administers them after award. So the services would award a contract, whether it's for a tank or a fighter jet. They transition that contract to DCMA for contract administration, where we're the ones in the factory looking at the quality, accepting the product, and making the payment. Awesome. So $3.5 trillion is the contract value. On an annual basis, I'll say on a regular basis, we were paying out around $800 or $900 million a year against the value of those contracts.
And then if looking across from really, as you mentioned...
Did I say million or billion?
You said million.
It was billion.
Billion, yeah. And I think earlier we were chatting and you had mentioned payments per day that were also equally mind-blowing. I think that was maybe the same number.
I think I might have just gotten that number mixed up as well. I'll say we had certainly had days where we were paying out over $1 billion in a single day.
Crazy.
And so, over the course of a year, when you compare it to the size of the defense budget, the portion of the defense budget that's going to modernization, a lot of that's flowing through DCMA administered contracts.
Yeah. Still amazing numbers nonetheless, and equally as mind-boggling. So across your career, really going from combat arms and signals units through, as you've mentioned, DCMA and other joint assignments, really impressive diversity of experiences. Can just really speak to your career progression and just how that's informed your thinking?
Yeah, so I actually really like the way the Army does acquisition, in that they make sure that officers that are going to go into either contracting or program management have to start by participating in their basic branch all the way up to the point of company command. So that's really the career path that I followed. I was a regular old signal officer, doing signal officer things, supporting combat arms units mostly for the first 7 or 8 years of my career. I did some staff time and got a look at things outside of my core signal competency. And as a major, I made the transition to be an acquisition officer. So I got to spend around the last 25 years of my career managing programs and contracts. I think defense acquisition is a complicated thing. There's lots of rules. You have to understand what you're doing, and really treating it as a profession that you have to become fluent in order to be effective.
Yeah, no, agreed. Want to transition a little bit, start to dive into AI/ML in particular, and really just start with, as you described your career trajectory, also how you've seen AI/ML transition over that time, and just that progression along with your PEO and DCMA service.
So I think artificial intelligence has gotten a lot of attention, I'll say, over about the last 5 years, maybe even a little longer, 5 to 10 years. And a lot of companies will be talking about how AI is influencing their design, or what AI is present within the systems they're delivering. I think we got a ways to go before we really see tasks that soldiers used to do now being performed on an automated basis by the system. And so when I would talk to my teams, I'd say, look, we got to make this real. We have to make sure that we can show the specific ways in which artificial intelligence is changing the way we interact with those automated systems. Whether that's assistance in targeting, right? I think there were huge opportunities to make the way in which gunners perform their function on combat vehicles better as a result of target recognition and support, all the way certainly to letting the machine process through sensor data that otherwise would be really difficult for humans to process. I don't think we're there yet, and I think we have to it's not going to be a big explosion that happens, but I think a deliberate step where we take additional tasks and have those things that are AI supported and become that much more efficient and effective in those things.
Yeah, great. We often see this kind of build versus buy decision within the department. Can you just, again, speak to AI/ML within that framework of build internally, buy externally, particularly from a DCMA or PEO perspective?
Yeah, I'll definitely tie that back to a PEO's perspective. There's always been a pendulum that has swung back and forth over the years on the extent to which the government wants to be the integrator and integrate things like AI models into their solutions. There was a train of thought, I'll say almost 20 years ago, that said we want to have a single integrator do that for the government and handle all of that themselves. I think now we're seeing potential opportunities where the government takes a more active role and begins to perform that kind of integration. I don't believe for a minute, though, that the government on its own can provide the level of AI capability that's necessary. It's going to take a combination of government and industry, where we're going to need to bring the folks in that really specialize in that, so that we're buying world-class technology. And we really want to make sure that even within the defense space, there are definitely folks that know more or less about how to apply those technologies, and we want to be working, I'll say we, I'm still talking like I'm on active duty, right? Like, I think the services need to be working with the very best-in-class service providers.
Yeah, awesome. No, great perspective, and we're actually, believe it, seeing that as well, with a mix of integration coming directly from our government customers, as well as the government leveraging the traditional primes or system integrators, and really even in some cases in between, we start looking at SIBRs and otherwise of this kind of full spectrum of support type of integrators, even types of where they're able to identify money and support to that end. So a great perspective.
Yeah, so on that, we want to make sure that there are on-ramps for that technology.
Yeah.
And to the extent that the big integrators have, I'll say, a routine set of partners that they work with, they may not be getting the very best technology available. And so having the government in that integrating role does allow them to reach out to a broader base of potential vendors than any given integrator might choose to work with at any given time.
Yeah. On-ramp, I think, is a great term, right? We're seeing a lot around SIBRs or Defense Innovation Unit, some of these early innovators, innovation funds, but then, of course, what does the transition plan look like for that into the larger services or supported by a larger contract, larger prime as well? So I think that ecosystem is really definitely building. Yeah.
Applying AI into these spaces is not a particularly easy task. There's lots of different models out there, each of which have different characteristics and capabilities. And when I got a chance to spend some time with the Latent AI engineering team this week, it's really clear that selecting a model right up front is really important. the cost of potentially developing around a less optimized model is something that can put you pretty far behind if you're not agile and you're able to switch. And so as I got a chance to spend time with the team, that ability to help select the right model, the ability to evolve and retrain that model over time and adapt it, even in an deployed environment, seems to be one of the real capabilities that the DoD needs to capitalize on if they want to have a faster time to market for these AI capabilities.
Yeah, great point. Definitely appreciate that perspective. Could you also maybe speak to, building on that, some of the other challenges you've seen implementing AI/ML or just around AI/ML in general within the department?
Yeah, the perspective I came from is I was exposed to a lot of companies that were claiming that AI was performing certain functions on their system, but it was never really clear what the tasks were that used to be performed by a soldier or couldn't be performed by a soldier, that the system had now enabled the AI to perform on their behalf. And so I think it's going to be important that we expand deliberately the set of tasks which are now supported by AI, that you can really correlate those things, where it's not just a hand wave that we're now using AI, but rather a deliberate set of tasks and functionality that are enabled over time, where you can really see what the system is doing on behalf of the soldier. I go back to the targeting analogy. This is not about having the system prosecute targets. It's not about the system deciding which targets get prosecuted, but the system could identify targets that are difficult for the soldier to see through the optics that are available. It could help prioritize and identify what those targets are, and it could help nominate targets that would make that gunner's task significantly more effective. That's different, I'll say, than this far end state that some have described as where the system is making those decisions on their own. I think this is about AI-assisted technology rather than AI performing those mission functions.
Yeah. You very much preempted my next question around some of the ethical considerations of AI/ML. Certainly some of the challenges we've seen around target identification and tracking, and then of course the human decision-making aspect in the loop. Are there other considerations, particularly as we look at deploying models to the field, or the ability to update those models over time, that certainly vendors and companies like Latent AI should be taking into account and be considering?
Yeah, one of the things that I like about Latent's approach is it really acknowledges that not every AI model is going to operate in an environment where you can afford to have that processing done remotely. We all talk about cloud capability and how important it is, but the reality of the tactical network, and we certainly saw this in my time at C3T, is that network can be very much constrained or degraded or denied, and we want systems that continue to perform in the absence of that enduring stable connection. And so being able to tailor those models to the constrained processing environment, processing memory that's available at the edge, I think it's really important. And so in order for AI to be effective, it has to be employed at the edge in that constrained comms environment, as well as at echelon, where the bandwidth and the connection allows.
Yeah.
And so having a more adaptable approach to that, I think, is going to be important.
Great. Yeah, we've talked about certainly optimizing and deploying models to the edge, moving those models up echelon and optimizing for those appropriate levels of decision making. One thing we haven't talked about is once you deploy those models to the edge or wherever they're employed, how do we secure those as well? So certainly a lot around cybersecurity, operational security. Would be really interested in your thoughts around starting to get around into AI/ML security, protecting the models, protecting the unique information associated with that as well.
Yeah, especially to the extent that you might be able to reverse engineer a model because it was disclosed. Protecting that intellectual property and the cybersecurity of that data gets very much important. One of the tasks we had at DCMA was assisting the Defense Industrial Base in securing their business networks. And the last thing we want is for the kinds of technology, algorithms, models that are going to give our soldiers an advantage on the battlefield to be able to be taken by an adversary, and we'll lose that advantage that we might otherwise obtain. So securing those things gets to be incredibly important. Otherwise, you're not just modernizing your force, you're modernizing your adversary as well.
Yeah, sure. You've touched on Latent a number of times throughout the conversation. Really wanted to close out and drill down on a couple of items. You acknowledged earlier your recent transition into the commercial sector, if you will. Really appreciate this conversation here today. Out of uniform in your new civilian status, you certainly could have worked across the defense industrial base. Why Latent?
One of the benefits I think I have retiring at this late stage of my career is I really have the luxury of choosing who I'm going to work with and what role I'm going to play. And I want to work with companies that I think have interesting technology and that I can maybe assist them in getting into the hands of our warfighters. Because I think that part of my mission, right, that I've dedicated a huge chunk of my life to delivering capability to give our soldiers an edge on the battlefield, I don't feel like I'm done with that mission. And so partnering with a company like Latent that's got this technology, I think, that can speed the delivery of artificial intelligence into the military domain is the reason I would choose a company like Latent AI. It's interesting technology. I think there's a really talented team here. And it allows me to engage maybe some of the more technical aspects of my background that I've been focused more on leading big organizations, and now I get to really dig into the depths of some of the technical detail that I certainly wouldn't have had the time to have done before. So it's been a pleasure to spend that time with the team.
Yeah, and you've spent 2 days with us here this week. The first day was almost exclusively with our engineers at your request to do a real deep dive into the technology. Today we spent a little bit more time looking at our go-to-market strategy, our partnership strategy across the department. You said it well a couple of times elsewhere, but really wanted to ask to summarize here what you see across those 2 days, both on the technical product side, but then also our value prop from a mission perspective, how you would summarize our value prop back to the department.
Spending the 2 days with the team is really about understanding, right? I think I've said publicly in a number of forums that not in the history of innovation has anyone ever innovated something they didn't understand. So starting with the ability to really understand the product that you're providing and how it fits into the overall development process for machine learning and AI-enabled tools was like my goal coming in here this week. And you guys certainly facilitated a great deal of that understanding. I think there's a really dramatic business case around providing the kind of tools that let developers pick the right existing AI model for their application and their deployed hardware environment. Because if you pick wrong, the opportunity costs of reworking all that software, at least in a current model, can be really expensive and really time consuming, and it can delay the delivery of capability. I think the second piece is that we currently have such a dynamic operational environment that DoD is in, that no matter what model you pick, you're going to have to retrain it, or you're going to have to potentially adjust and change from that over time as the environment around that model changes. So the idea that we could just go field something and it's going to be good forever is, I think, an assumption we just can't make anymore. It's not a static environment. So you got to be able to pick the right model up front. You got to be able to adapt to changes in your environment so that you can either update that model or even potentially change models over time, and the tools that Latent AI is providing can do those things. And then I think lastly, you've got to have the flexibility to be able to update those models into a deployed environment. Because the best model in the world sitting back in the labs doesn't do you any good if it's not in the hands of a soldier, or an airman, or a Marine. And so, or a sailor, apparently. Or Coast Guard, I heard. But really, that it's those three characteristics that I think I really came away with as being the core to why you'd want to include Latent AI's products as part of your machine learning pipeline for development. The people that are going to use these tools are not going to be the soldier themselves. It's the developers that are going to build on top of that pipeline and then deliver those models as part of an integrated product that the soldiers will use. And so focusing that on those customers that are actually going to employ the tool as part of their development. It's going to be a big part.
Yeah, great. Well said, and we're really, really excited to have the opportunity to do that, certainly based on our support across the department thus far. Last question is, you spent 2 days with us. What's the one thing that gets you most excited or that you've been most impressed by with respect to our company, our people, and our product?
I think it's really cool to be on the ground floor of this new capability. All we hear about in the media right now are kind of large language models and chat GTP, and all of us are now interacting with AI in ways that we couldn't have predicted even 2 years ago. And against that backdrop, Latent AI is a company that's looking specifically at some of the models that are necessary within the military and federal space, and trying to make those available to application developers in ways that are really powerful. And so I think that's the kind of thing that is while we've got a lot of hype going on over here, hopefully we've got some really diligent delivery of new capability that's going to make a difference in the way that we interact with our systems. And to be able to be on the ground floor and see the kind of really just great talent here in Latent AI. It's not a very big team, but it's people that are really good at what they do. And to be able to be exposed to that so early in my time in retirement has been fantastic.
Well, we certainly appreciate your time so early in retirement here, spending the week with us, understanding a little bit about our product, our company, our culture, and then also really appreciate and excited with you joining us as a strategic advisor to take this capability back to our service members and really enable them in their mission set. So appreciate the time both this week, and we're really excited to have you aboard and look forward to a continuing engagement.
Thanks, Scott. Appreciate it.